Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to the sports segment of the weekend show. I'm Ayo Adams. Happy New Year. I'm going to be walking you through all the happenings in the world of sports. And as bright-minded as I am today, we are going to be giving you updates on the Africa Cup of Nations that's going to be kicking off in Cameroon tomorrow. We'll also go to tennis, where we'll talk about the ATP Cup. We'll also talk about the Australian Open and the NOVAK Djokovic's COVID-19 saga. So let's begin. The first tournament of 2022 kicks off in Cameroon with the African Cup of Nations, housing some of the world's best talents in football on Sunday. It's been 50 years since Cameroon last hosted the Nations Cup. The indomitable Lions are set and ready to showcase the continent's biggest stars. Some of the football elites will go toe-to-toe in their sacred duty of defending their country's bragging rights. 24 African nations competing for triumph over 52 thrilling games. June 2021 was initially scheduled for the commencement of the prestigious African Championship, but the rise in the COVID-19 cases saw it postponed. But the governing body CAF has faced multiple criticism when rumors about another postponement surfaced over Omicron, the new COVID-19 variant. The AFCON further faced disrespect as some clubs were reluctant in the release of African players to come represent their nations. When I move to the Super Eagles, who are also now in Cameroon playing in the African Cup of Nations. They are gearing up for their opening game against Egypt in Cameroon. The Super Eagles coach Austin Egovon has assured the Super Eagles that there's going to be lots and lots of games to be played, and they're going to represent their country in due terms. Now, the Africa Cup of Nations will house a lot of brilliant teams. The Super Eagles are now going to be missing a couple of their players, such as Victor Osimhen, Emmanuel Dennis, and Paul Onachu, who's out on injury. The Super Eagles are looking to see if they can bring back the glory days that they had in the last competition where they came third. Also, we're still going to have, Super Eagles are going to be playing the Pharaohs of Egypt, who hosted the last tournament in 2019 on their opening day with one of the brightest players in the world, Mohamed Salah, who is going to be on display on that day. But Super Eagles captain Ahmed Musa also stated in the press conference that Nigeria has a lot of brilliant players, which undeniably so. We have players such as Kelechi Iheanacho, Chukwueze, which the Super Eagles captain clearly stated is also a feat to be able to stand with on the opening day for the Nigerian game, which is going to be played on the 11th Tuesday against the Pharaohs of Egypt. Will the Super Eagles be able to turn back around the deficit that they've had? Will they be able to come back and show the world what they can do over the course of the African Cup of Nations, as they've had some really bad performances before moving into the African Cup of Nations, and they've not really had time to train, as players have just been coming in gradually, and some players will still go ahead to meet them in Cameroon. Hopefully, the Super Eagles will be able to turn back and gain back the strength and commitment of their fans back home, because some of the fans back home do not believe the Super Eagles can take it further and win the Nations Cup. The last outing for the Super Eagles ended in the third place in the 2019 Nations Cup, where Odion Ighalo was the top scorer. And he will also not be with the Super Eagles in this edition, as his club, Saudi Arabia club Al-Shabaab, has refused to release him to come for the Nations Cup, saying that the NFF did not submit the request for Odion Ighalo on time. Same feat went for Emmanuel Dennis of Watford, who was the same indication. Also, Watford also clearly stated that Emmanuel Dennis's request from the NFF to them was not sent on time. Henceforth, they would not be able to release the player. Victor Osimhen was also part of the player who is not going to be released by his club, stating clearly that he tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. Moving on, we still have, we're now moving on to tennis, where we have the men's tennis. Men's tennis begin in Melbourne, the biggest tennis tournament of the year. The biggest Grand Slam begins this year with the ATP Cup, where some of the brilliant tennis players will be representing their country in pairs and in singles over the course of their tournament in Melbourne, Australia. The men's tennis begins in Melbourne. So far we've seen world comebacks and upset. Team Australia defeated Team Italy as Dani Medvedev, world number 2, returns with a brilliant spark. And while world number 6 and dubbed as the king of clay, Rafael Nadal also returned with a stunning comeback after months away due to injuries. He defeated Ricardas Berankis 6-2, 7-5. 7-5 in his opening set when he came back to Melbourne in Australia. And moving on, we have women's number 1, Naomi Osaka, has also returned back finally after 4 years of, after 4 months of breaking out saying that she took a break for her mental health issues. Naomi Osaka is now back playing in the women's singles for the ATP Tour, representing Japan in the tournament. She went on a sabbatical due to mental health issues last year. She finds herself in the semis against Veronica of Russia at the Rod Laver Arena today. Another upset that surfaced yesterday was young Canadian star Felix Auger, who defeated world number 3 German Alexander Zverev in a 6-4, 4-6, 6-3 tie. He will now face world number 2 Dani Medvedev of Russia in the men's semifinals. Now let's move to the Australian Open, where the first major Grand Slam will start on the 17th of January and end on 30th of January in Melbourne, Australia, as the brightest tennis stars will once again fight to keep their rankings and as they hope to pick up the biggest slams of the year. World number 1 Serbia Novak Djokovic was denied passage into Australia for preparation for the Grand Slam, as Djokovic, whose COVID-19 vaccination status is unconfirmed, and he revealed an exemption from the Tennis Australia to play in the Australia Open without being double vaccinated. His visa was cancelled and is currently in quarantine pending a hearing on Monday. The case became a political tussle between Serbia and Australia, as home of the 9-time Australian Open champion says he's been treated unjustly and is being held captive. While the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison stated that rules are rules, especially when it comes to crossing the Australian border. He further explained that the border policies are very critical to Australia, as it has one of the lowest COVID-19 deaths rates in the world. He hammered on yet again, saying rules are rules and no one is above these rules. Well, that's all I have for you on the sports segment of the weekend show. Make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you watch the AFCON. And on Tuesday is when Nigeria will be taking on the Pharaohs of Egypt. We wish them well. We hope they can come back to show triumph and possibly win the African Cup of Nations. Well, my name is Ayo Adam. Stay tuned to the weekend show. There is more.